Let's talk a little bit about the timeline of of John 4. In this timeline, Jesus heard that the Pharisees had heard. He learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John. So he left Judea and went back to Galilee. He left Judea and went to Galilee. And he had to go through Samaria. And he came to a town called Sychar, near a plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. So on the way from Judea to Galilee, he stops in Sychar, Samaria. He has a good time there, and when the Samaritans came to him, they urged him to stay with him. And he stayed for 2 days. So he stayed for 2 days in Sychar, Samaria. And after 2 days, he left for Galilee. Okay, so Galilee was Jesus' home country, right? So this is an interesting juxtaposition here because John says, now Jesus had pointed out that a prophet has no honor in his own country. But then it says, when he arrived in Galilee, the Galileans welcomed him. They had seen all that he had done in Jerusalem at the Passover festival, for they had also been there. So we have this juxtaposition because Jesus said he has no honor in his own country. He was in his own country, and they welcomed him because of what they had seen happen in Passover. What they had seen happen in Passover, at Passover. They had seen all that he had done in Jerusalem at the Passover festival. So, just out of curiosity, in Matthew, there's only one mention of Passover in Matthew 26, and it seems like Jesus only went to Passover one time. In Mark also, there's only one real mention of Passover in Mark chapter 14, and again, he only went to Passover one time. Okay, Luke's gospel has almost the same effect because there's only the mention of it in Luke chapter 22, except it also says every year Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. Did they bring Jesus with them? So according to Luke, his parents were searching for Jesus for 3 days. They couldn't find him at Passover. And after 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. And you've got this kind of 3 days thing going on here. But he certainly didn't make a whip out of cords and drive people out from the temple courts. He didn't throw people out crying out, "Get these out of here, stop turning my father's house into a market." But you could say zeal for the house did consume him. He said, "Didn't you know that I had to be in my father's house?" But it wasn't the sort of destructive zeal that John was describing. It was more of a zeal for understanding. So here, back to John 4:45, it says, "The Galileans welcomed him. They had seen all that he had done in Jerusalem at the Passover festival, for they had also been there." The trouble is, we weren't there. So we've got to decide, are we going to accept John's account, John 2:13 through 17, where Jesus made a cord out of whips and drove everyone out of the temple? Or do we accept Luke's account, where Jesus went in and accidentally got left behind by his parents and sat around with the scholars and asked a lot of questions and answered a lot of questions? For which of those reasons did the Galileans welcome him? Well, I think that Luke is describing the Son of Man, the Messiah, while John is describing the activities of Barabbas, who is the scapegoat. And second, this principle that a prophet has no honor has a double meaning, because Barabbas really had no honor. Um, the uh, the scapegoat, the one that uh, cleared the temple courts, uh, the one who said, "You won't turn my father's house into a market," and the other one, the Son of Man, who said, "This should be a house of prayer, not a robber's den." There's a there's a pretty big distinction between a market and a robber's den, um, because when in John 2, Jesus comes through and says, "You shouldn't turn my father's house into a market." He's making a statement sort of against currency. He's saying against currency being used in that area, which maybe that's a good idea. Probably, honestly, churches should be open to everyone, not just those that have enough money to attend. Um, but the implication is that markets are bad in general, which is might not be the case. Um, there are probably plenty of situations where it is very helpful to have currency as part of your bartering system. Um, anyway, the other version is the other Jesus says this should be a house of prayer, not a robber's den. And by saying it should not be a robber's den, he's basically saying he's making a statement against cheating people rather than. So in John 4:44, when John says, in parentheses, "Now Jesus himself had pointed out that a prophet has no honor in his own country." What was what is John trying to get across there? Is he trying to get across that Jesus was not honored? Because it sounds like he was. When he arrived in Galilee, the Galileans welcomed him. They had seen all he had done in Jerusalem at the Passover festival, for they had also been there. Is he saying that that is not honor? It sounds like he is being honored, but for which reason? Is he being honored for staying at the temple for 3 days, asking good questions, as he did in Luke 2? Or is he being honored for um, making a whip out of rope, making a rope out of whips, whip, a whip out of cords, and going in and railing against the markets that have been built in there and smashing over tables and all of that? Well, let's make some context notes, because this goes along with this. The whole John 4:44 goes in the same book with John 2:13 through 17. And so John is saying that some of the people in Galilee were greeting uh, Barabbas with enthusiasm because they thought this was really cool when he made a whip out of cords and drove everybody from the temple courts, both their sheep and their cattle. He scattered the coins and the money changers on and overturned their tables. And he told the dove sellers, "Get these out of here. Stop turning my father's house into a market." So John is subtly saying that such behavior has no honor. And he's saying these Galileans saw what he had done in Jerusalem at the Passover festival, for they had also been there. What he had done in at the Passover had no honor. And yet, when he arrived in Galilee, the Galileans welcomed him anyway. Or maybe even because it was such a rebellion, it was such an open disrespect of the Jewish culture to do what he did, and such a successful stick it to the man sort of thing. And that was only one of two signs that he did. It says down here, the second sign Jesus performed after coming from Judea to Galilee. All right, because he came from Judea to Galilee. So I guess he's counting the two signs that he's counting is talking to the woman at the well and being able to guess that she had 5 husbands. Okay, that was amazing. Okay. And the second sign was he healed a certain royal official's son. So we've got two miracles on the trip from Judea to Galilee, and basically one miracle before the trip from Judea to Galilee, um, with one being, so he turned water to wine, um, which is okay. Yeah, that's a miracle in some ways. It's more of a magic trick than a miracle because it's not hard to put false bottoms into things. Also, didn't really do anything um, to heal anybody or make their life better. It just made more wine for guests who had already had too much to drink. And if you've ever been given more alcohol when you've already had too much to drink, you know that is not a kindness. Second thing wasn't really a sign, but was driving. He drove merchants from the temple with a rope of cords, with a whip made of cords. But it seems kind of surprising that he was able to do that all by himself. Maybe he had. It seems more like of something that Jesus Barabbas might have done rather than acting with other people that were in his insurrection. And then the next thing he did was he talked to the Samaritan woman, and I guess he didn't guess. He knew that she had had 5 husbands, um, which is something probably pretty easily accomplished if you talked to people in neighborhoods anywhere in the surrounding territories. You could probably find out this information based on just like saying, "Hey, tell me the gossip on Sychar or Sychar." Okay, so that's a great miracle. And then finally, in the last miracle that he performed, he told a man his son was well. Now his son was in Judea apparently. So this is interesting. Jesus was here in Galilee. The man with the sick son came to Galilee to um, ask Jesus to heal his son. Jesus had just come from Judea. The miracle happened here for the public to see. That is where Jesus said, "Your son is healed. Go back and see him." The man walked this way through Sychar back to Judea, and he met his servants somewhere along the way. That one man says that those servants told him Yesterday at 1 in the afternoon, the fever left him. So there's only one person that actually knows for sure this miracle or this coincidence actually happened. Because he inquired as to the time when his son got better. Okay, fine. They said to him, yesterday at 1 in the afternoon, the fever left him. Now, it doesn't matter what time they had said. What time did he get better? There would have been uh, nothing they could say that he couldn't respond with, "Oh my gosh, that's the exact time at which Jesus said to me, 'Your son will live.'" So long as this guy is in on the trick, well, these are really easy confidence games that you could pull off with, this one just involves sending somebody ahead to find out a little bit of gossip about the people in the neighborhood. And the other one just involves finding some royal official who is fine with saying, "Oh my gosh, that's the same time Jesus said to me, 'Your son will live.'" Okay, there's just a little bit more I want to say about the healing. Um, Instead of taking it with the being cynical about the royal official, let's look at it as though he's not a cynical observer. Let's look at it as if though he is a real person who is concerned about the health of his son. He heard that Jesus had arrived in Galilee from Judea, and he went to him and begged him to come and heal his son, who was close to death. So if this is true, then the next statement from Jesus is not true. It's not correct at all. Because Jesus says, "Unless you people see signs and wonders, you will never believe." Now, this is absurd because, I mean, it's an absurd response to this man because the man has already come to Jesus saying, "Please heal my son." He's gone out of his way to go to him and beg him to come and heal his son. This man already believes that Jesus has that power. He's just asking him to come do it. There's no, uh, there's no, he's not asking Jesus to help him believe. He's asking Jesus to come heal his son. The royal official said, "Sir, come down before my child dies." Jesus says, "Go, your son will live." And the man took Jesus at his word and departed. Again, here the man took Jesus at his word. There was no situation. It wasn't a matter of he needed to see the sign and wonder. He already believed it was. He already believed it. Okay, taking everything uh, literally, then there's no need for Jesus to say this. "Unless your people see signs and wonders, you will never believe." Um, this part is completely extraneous because he isn't he isn't helping anyone to believe except the man that already believes in him. So it seems like John 4 is delineating the same thing as Matthew chapter 20, when he has come to his hometown in Galilee. They were amazed because they wondered where he got his wisdom, miraculous powers. Isn't this the carpenter's son? And they actually took offense at him. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his own town and in his own home." And he did not do many miracles there because of their lack of faith. So John tries to go into detail about one of the miracles that was done, but it does come off sounding kind of like a confidence game.